Hello everybody, I'm OCDsaster and this is OCDsaster Blue, my Sonic exclusive channel where everything we do here is Sonic related. So if that sounds like something your speed, consider checking out some other videos after this one and subscribing. A week ago I did a video on the remaining DLC characters, both free and purchasable for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, and there were a lot of things that I got wrong. Per standard, as you guys know, I do not claim to be the best Sonic researcher or the #1 Sonic fan out there. Many of you are, and just are more well versed in the Sonic content and zeitgeist than I am, and you have informed me on some of those opinions and mistakes that I made in the last video, and I wanted to, one, amend those here, and then to go on to what this video is going to be about, and that's going to be potential Season 2 pass characters. Alright, so I started last video off with the free DLC character speculation, and for the most part, a lot of you agreed with what I had to say, and even were like, well, Knights is on the back of the box for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, so he's most likely confirmed. I don't have a box version, I got the digital deluxe version, so that's why I didn't see that. You informed me that when I mentioned Balan from Balan's Wonderworld, that is actually a Square Enix property and not a Sega property. I was a little bit confused because I believe one of the game directors for the Sonic games helped with that game, and that's why Balan is so similar to that of Knights, so apologies there. And then a lot of you were telling me about, one, the comic, the Sonic Racing CrossWorlds comic with a character named Tangle, and saying that they're most likely confirmed as a free DLC character, and others were saying that we're most likely not going to be getting any more Sonic characters as the free DLC. So that we're going to have to wait and see on. There's not a lot of evidence continuing on with that, but I wanted to amend those, errors in the last video. I really hope that we get more Sonic rostered characters for the free DLC, but we're just kind of waiting on that. And moving on from there, we have the third-party purchasable DLC, which includes, SpongeBob, Patrick, Minecraft folks, and then we had the TMNT and the Avatar slots left. Apparently, due to the PlayStation Store, I believe, or one of the online stores, it actually showed that there would be 4 TMNT characters and only 2 Avatar characters, which very much narrows down the speculation. I believe for the Avatar characters, it will be just Aang and Korra at that point. If not, it would probably be Aang and Zuko. Those are the only 2 pairings I can really think of for Avatar, if that is true. When it comes to TMNT, people are saying all 4 slots would be the different turtles, and if that's the case, that's really disappointing, and that's kind of a waste of slots if you ask me. I think it would make more sense to have the turtles be 1 slot and you could change who they are, like as if you were to change a character. I know they are more than just character color variants, but I think that would be better, and then have 3 other types of TMNT characters, but we'll just have to see on that. But I wanted to make that final correction as well. I want to thank all of you that supported that last video, regardless of the errors that I made, and for those of you that did correct me and did so in an appropriate and respectful way, I really love that. I definitely preach for this community that you can be Sonic fans and disagree and still be cordial with one another, be informed, and have conversations without everyone going down each other's throats. So I really appreciate that we're continuing that spirit in the comment section, and really hope we push on with that as this channel begins to grow slowly but surely. Now we're moving on to the meat of the video. We went through the potatoes and the sides, kind of correcting a past video, but now we're talking about something that's completely speculative, has not been announced to my knowledge, unless you guys correct me again, and we're just going to go into this and just speculate away. This is part of my, gig, my shtick. I really like doing these things. I did it for my main OCDsaster channel when Super Smash Bros. Was out speculating. We have the second season pass for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. That has not been confirmed yet, but I believe because they've already called the first one Pass 1, it's almost inevitable that we're getting a Pass 2, and the game seems to be pretty popular, and the sales, I haven't actually heard about the sales, but I'm imagining they're doing pretty well, and we might just get more and more collaborations. So in this video, I thought it would be fun to, before they even announce a second season pass, predict what some of these DLC characters possibly could be based off of the patterns that we got from the first pass, and just keep it to the same number that we got for the first pass as well. So 15 characters in total as third-party DLC, and out of those 15, they'll come from 6 different properties or franchises. Alright, looking at the Season Pass 1 collaboration racers, we can kind of form a pattern on the second pass if there is going to be one. The first 3 are Minecraft characters, so we start off with a video game franchise or series. We then move into SpongeBob and Patrick. I think the second pass could possibly be a Warner Brothers pass. We got a heavy Nickelodeon pass this time around with SpongeBob, Patrick, TMNT, and Avatar. So I think it would make sense to also have a Warner Brothers license in the second pass, because there even has been, you know, collaborations with Sonic and Sega. There was the DC or Justice League meets the Sonic Squad or whatever it's called. So I think there is a very high possibility of having some DC characters in the next pass, and Warner Brothers by extension, because Warner Brothers owns DC characters. So I think that is what's in our future for Pass 2. So I think that's what the pass is heavily going to be about. But there is a pattern here. So like I said, you had 3 Minecraft, 2 SpongeBob, then you got more video games in that second tier, more of the retro classic video game characters such as Pac-Man, Mega Man and stuff, and then you go back to that Nickelodeon IP at the bottom. So we're going to use this as our foundation for speculating Pass 2. Minecraft is owned by Microsoft, and if you haven't been paying attention, Microsoft has kind of been in the sewer right now. They're getting a lot of rightful criticism because they really increased the prices for the Ultimate Game Pass bundle, increasing it by like over 40-something%. Very unconsumer friendly, very also just kind of like backing out of the console war altogether. It's not looking good for Microsoft, so I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get into a game that's in the good graces of some folks, and what better than to do a major Microsoft license or property that hasn't really been getting a lot of good reputation as of late, but could be pretty fun to do in a racer. And that would actually be Halo. Now, I'm not 100% sure if you have an M-rated character. No, because Halo's in Fortnite, and Fortnite's still rated T. It didn't turn to rated M because Master Chief was in it. Alright, we're good, because there's also, like, horror characters in Fortnite that are, like, all, like, you know, in rated R movies, and they didn't change the rating. Alright, I answered my own question there. I think having 3 slots for Halo characters could actually make sense for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, because there is a lot of overlap between Sonic fans and like old school video game fans, because a lot of Sonic fans like myself are in that age of like late to early 30s, late 20s to early 30s. I'm not that old, but there are people older than me that are Sonic fans and have played Halo and stuff like that. So I think that actually makes sense, having Master Chief in there, maybe have Cortana as a playable character on a extreme gear or a boost machine as they call it in this game, and then the Orbiter, I believe is his name, right? I never fully played Halo like that. I wasn't allowed to when I was younger, but that's a different story for a different day. But I do think having 3 Halo characters to start off the second season pass would be crazy. In Season Pass 1, we had debatably the biggest Nickelodeon main staple characters in decades, SpongeBob and Patrick. So I think it only makes sense to have the main staple Warner Brothers property characters in this slot. Now, these 2 characters aren't as popular as SpongeBob or Patrick, but they are really big, iconic characters that we've seen in not that many things recently, but they're still relevant enough in the cultural zeitgeist, and that would be Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, the Looney Tunes. I think this just makes perfect sense. They fit really well into this game with the cartoon look, with the wackiness of the power-ups, and you have to think about it this way. Multiverses, which was a Smash Bros-like platform fighting game with Warner Brothers property characters that failed epically, they being Warner Brothers, are probably very desperate to license out some of their characters and put them in very popular, relevant video games, and it would just make sense to have these two iconic Looney Tune characters in that spot. This next selection is a little bit tricky for me because now we're in the retro video game character category, and believe it or not, a lot of retro video game characters and iconic characters come from Nintendo properties, and I really don't think that Nintendo is going to be having their characters in this game, even though I have referenced Sonic Racing CrossWorlds as the Smash Bros of the kart racers. I just don't see that happening. It would be huge, it would be amazing, and I would be all for it if we got like Samus Aran or, you know, Captain Falcon, characters that make sense with karts, but I think we would get those in Mario Kart before anything else. And I've been like kind of trying to figure out what makes the best sense here. So for the Pac-Man slot, like the retro video game character slot, I might actually pull out some Square Enix characters, some Final Fantasy characters. I think that would make sense. They are not exclusive to Nintendo games, they're not exclusive to Smash Bros. For collaboration pieces, and there are iconic Square Enix and Final Fantasy games that date back before I was even born. So I think we're going to do Black Mage as one of the characters, and maybe Cloud Strife, or we could even do Cloud Strife Sephiroth. We could do, there's so many Final Fantasy characters, with Final Fantasy VII being like the most popular, so I'm not going to definitively say which Final Fantasy characters, but I'll just say 2 Final Fantasy characters for that retro video game portion. And then moving over, we had 2 of the Mega Man characters, and I think it would just make sense to keep going with kind of that Capcom sort of IP and just do Street Fighter characters, Ken and Ryu. So we are actually overlapping with Super Smash Bros. A little bit, but once again, Nintendo doesn't own those characters. They just kind of got licensed out to Smash Bros. Ultimate. So I think that makes sense for this second row of characters in the Season Pass 2 collaboration. This is my most weak kind of like speculative portion of the video, so you guys can give me your thoughts and opinions down below on what retro characters you would like to see in a Season Pass 2 of Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. And now we get to the last row, which will contain all Warner Brothers characters, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 DC characters and then 2 remaining popular Warner Brothers characters. So those 4 DC characters are going to be Batman, who would have a Batmobile, Wonder Woman, who would hilariously have the invisible car, because that's actually a thing, and I think that would be hilarious to have that as a playable vehicle where everyone's just kind of sitting on nothing and just racing around. I think so many people would choose that, and it would be really, really funny. Will it actually happen? I don't know, but it's so funny. The Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman in a car, which feels a little bit odd, but it has to be that way, and Superman's one of those pillars of the DC comics. And then finally, I was thinking Flash, but it falls under with Sonic as well. Like, they both can run and be faster than everyone else, so having Flash in a car makes sense. You could also move and do Green Lantern with an extreme gear that just glows green from like his ring. That would be cool, but I think Flash is more popular than Green Lantern still. So those are the 4 that I have for the DC characters. You could even put in Cyborg with an extreme gear. That would be cool, but I really think it's going to be Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Flash. Guys, I'm actually really torn between these last 2 like IPs from Warner Brothers that we could do for this last slot. That would have been the Avatar characters. I'm really like hurting my brain thinking about what this could be. It's between either Hanna-Barbera characters, which I know Hanna-Barbera is a little bit dated these days, but everyone still knows like the Jetsons, Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, and I think it would just make perfect sense to have like Scooby and Shaggy, right, with like the mystery van or the mystery machine, and it even has machine in it, and that's what these carts are called in this game, so like that works perfectly. Having the Flintstones would be hilarious, like the running like prehistoric carts, even though that would take forever to actually put in the game. So I really don't think, if it was Hanna-Barbera, it would either be Shaggy and Scooby, or it would be like the Jetsons, but the Jetsons are like way less popular. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. If it's Hanna-Barbera, it would be Shaggy and Scooby, hands down. And then the other one that I was thinking of that would actually be pretty cool, but I don't know if it would ever happen, would actually be, because Warner Brothers owns Cartoon Network, the Powerpuff Girls. Have one slot be Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup. Either you play as all three in one cart and they're just like hovering over the cart, or you can select, you know, different colors for them, and then Mojo Jojo. I really like the Scooby and Shaggy route as much as I like the Powerpuff Girl route. I think it could be either, and I just really don't know. So I'm gonna leave it up to you guys for this last one. What do you think is more realistic for this final 2 slots of Warner Brothers IP and property? Having the Powerpuff Girls and Mojo Jojo, or having Shaggy and Scooby with the Mystery Machine? I would love to hear your thoughts, or if you have better ideas, list them down below. Guys, this was very fun to do. This is all very speculative. We do not have a Season Pass 2 confirmed as of this recording. Maybe it'll happen right after I upload this video. We just don't know. We still have tons of DLC characters to come out from Pass 1, and I really think we're not going to be getting a Pass 2 announcement until well into the mid of next year, 2026. So we'll just have to wait and see how much of these are closer to being accurate than not. I could be completely wrong and they could go a completely different direction Pass 2 if it happens. But what do you guys think of my list? Do you see these characters as possibilities for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds as a Season Pass 2 Collaboration Racer Pack? So in summary, we would have Warner Brothers properties instead of the Nickelodeon properties, and as the video game properties go, we have, for the first 3, we would have Halo characters, then we would have Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, then we would move into retro video game characters, and I'm not very confident of these, but having 2 Final Fantasy characters, moving into the last 2 of the retro characters, having, Ryu and Ken from Street Fighter, moving to that last, tier, that last level of the pass, having Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and the Flash, and then rounding off the pass with Shaggy and Scooby. That is my prediction. I'm sure I'm very, very, very wrong, but this was just so fun to do, and I'm really curious to what you guys have to say. With that being said, I'm OCDsaster, and I hope you have a super Sonic rest of your day. See ya.